We're live, at least we should be. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com, and welcome to another live video here on YouTube. Today we're going to be talking, as usual, about fluency, but I wanted to explain specifically about why people actually do a lot of the things they do to learn and yet still don't get results, and the simple way to fix that. So we will be talking about fluency. I will keep my eye on chat as usual, but I probably don't have a lot of time for this video. There is some gardening going on below the window here, and people are using some equipment, so I might get, I don't know, we'll see if it gets noisy or not, but I'll go for, I don't know, we'll try this a little bit and see what happens. So I wanted to talk about this because when I ask people about why they're doing the things they do to learn, they often don't know. Like, they don't know exactly why the stuff they do is actually producing fluency or how it works. You know, we just kind of assume that fluency or speaking a language is a skill like anything else, and if you do it enough, then you should get fluent. But it doesn't work like that for a few reasons. One of them is because even when you are in regular conversations with people, the things that you learn, even if you know them well, people might express them differently or use different words or have a different accent or whatever. There are lots of reasons why the things you might learn in a classroom just don't get used, or they are completely different in the real world. And so even if you are practicing that stuff, you can still have trouble speaking. And the other reason, this is kind of the hidden reason why a lot of people struggle to speak, and that's because most of the things they do to learn aren't actually giving them certainty. And so what I mean by this is, like, if you think about all the different things that people can do to learn a language, like, you could watch movies or TV shows or read books or articles or listen to podcasts or whatever. There are lots of different things you can do, and that stuff can build fluency, but it doesn't for a lot of people, because even if you get information, you're not often getting certainty. So you still don't feel sure about using your words, and that feeling of certainty is really the thing that allows you to speak. So if I don't know how to say something, that's a very practical issue of me not being able to use it. So even if I have a good vocabulary, if I'm not sure about using it in a conversation, obviously that's going to cause me some issues. So I wanted to give just a few examples of this, like the kinds of things that people do in order to learn, but that can still leave you with questions. And so I actually talk about this quite a bit with learners when I'm asking them how exactly they're learning. And so we have like let's say you do listen to a podcast, but you learn something, but then you forget it pretty soon afterwards. Or you don't hear it again ever, and you're just like, oh, that was an interesting word. Maybe you even felt sure about it at the moment, but then you forget it pretty quickly after that. Or you have a TV show, same kind of thing. Maybe you hear a grammar point used, but you still don't feel confident about using it yourself. Or even you get something from AI. So now AI is the big thing where people are still trying to learn, but it's essentially the same problem that we've had for many years. So if you look at the history of different ways you could learn a language, from text to audio to video and now to learning with AI, it's still mostly the same way of learning that can often give you information or tell you rules, or the same kind of thing, but still leave you with questions. And so the point here is that it doesn't really matter what these things are. If they're leaving you with questions, that's going to stop you from speaking. Hopefully that makes sense. But this should be a very important thing for people to keep in mind, because when we think about learning something and then feeling sure about that, like understanding it and feeling confident about using it, and I have no issues, I have no questions or worries, that kind of thing is like having a gold nugget, you know. And I've talked about this recently, but watching TV shows or listening to podcasts or talking with AI, all of that stuff is really to get those gold nuggets of certainty about particular things you want to say. And if you get enough of those, then you can converse well in the language generally. But if you think about why we're learning, why we do the things we do, and what the process actually is for learning something and then feeling confident about using it, feeling sure about using it, it's really trying to get those bits of certainty. And so when people make statements like, I'm not very fluent, or I struggle to speak, or I lack confidence, or my pronunciation is not very good, those are all kind of general claims which really come from specific issues dealing with communication. So it's not that you're not fluent, it's that you probably don't feel sure about saying some things, but you probably feel sure about saying other things. And so that's really important to remember. So most of the people, especially at the level where I teach, these are people who can understand what I'm saying quite well, usually everything, in fact. I'm not speaking particularly quickly or using really difficult language. And it's like a kind of easy way to understand the language without getting a lot of challenging vocabulary either. So if I'm teaching something, I want to make sure you understand what that is, but that's the whole point. Often when you're watching a TV show, the characters on the show don't care if you understand or not, because it's for native audiences, and maybe you understand it, but maybe you do not. So anyway, again, all of these things, what we're really looking for is those moments where we actually understand something, because then we can finally use it. Okay. And so we don't want to just listen to podcasts and keep getting more input for no reason. You know, it's not like, okay, let's keep collecting input and keep feeling like, okay, I kind of understand more. If you don't feel certain about what you want to say, if you're not sure about it, and this is not about perfection, it's just feeling sure about what you want to say. And if you don't feel like that, it's going to be more difficult or even impossible for you to express yourself. So I wanted to go through just like the very simple process of why this happens. So looking at, the kinds of things people do, especially for new people, because we get new people coming to the channel all the time. And I really want to make this clear for everyone. So this is the same thing I describe in my book, The Strangest Fluency Secret. But I wanted to just show it visually and talk with you through it, just making sure everybody understands. So if we look at like traditional, we'll just call this trad learning. So trad learning, it's pretty simple idea where, let's see if I have enough space for this. So you can imagine there's the learning phase where you're trying to do this stuff. So all the podcasts, TV shows, trying to talk with AI, all of that stuff is in here. But if you don't feel certain about what you're learning, you're just getting more input. Maybe you understand more over time, but it's not really helping you very much. And so the next step that most people try to do is speaking. And again, the same kind of issue here. You try speaking. If you don't feel certain first, then of course you're going to struggle with communication. All right. So it's a very simple idea. I think the traditional way of looking at languages and learning this way is people think maybe I'm not going to understand it very well. Like I have to speak and then I will understand it. And that is true for some people in some cases, but it's kind of guessing and hoping and praying and wishing that maybe you will become fluent rather than actually just feeling sure about what you want to say. So if you're not getting those gold nuggets of certainty, if you don't feel sure about what you want to say, and then you try to speak, you're probably not going to get that certainty there either. You could, you might, but a lot of people don't. So if you're not feeling certain here and you're not feeling certain here, then what do people do? Usually after that, they just repeat the process, either with the same thing. Maybe they try to get more input or, again, watching more TV shows or trying to talk to AI or whatever. This is often random. So people will watch, maybe you're watching this video right here, but maybe before this you were watching some other random topic about whatever. And there wasn't like a plan or a method to what you were doing. You were just, okay, here's, this video looks interesting, so I'm watching it. But whether it's random or not, either you're going through and trying to repeat the same thing again, like trying to learn the same thing, or you just move on to something different. And so you do feel like you are improving more over time because you are understanding more. And it's much easier to understand content when other people say it because you don't have to do the processing of the information. So I can listen to things, I can understand a lot from movies and podcasts and TV shows and AI and apps or all that stuff. But if I don't feel certain about what I learn, if I'm not getting those gold nuggets, the thing that actually allows me to speak, then I'm going to have trouble speaking. And I'm probably not going to get those gold nuggets from speaking. You can, again, I'm not saying this is like an impossible way to get fluent. It's just a lot more difficult. But this is the way most people learn. So this is a trad learning way. And so what I recommend instead, as the title suggests here, is that we want to get certainty first. And it's actually very similar to what we're doing here. The only difference is we really want to make sure during the learning phase that we actually feel certain about what we're learning, whatever it is. So it's a very simple process, the same thing I lay out in the book for people who have the Strangest Fluency Secret. But within the learning phase, you're essentially picking something specific. So whatever that issue is, it could be a word, a phrase, a topic you want to talk about, it doesn't matter, but you're not just floating around collecting random information. We want to choose something, and often we choose things based on either what we want to talk about or something we maybe struggled to talk about. But you can use that uncertainty you feel for directing where you want to learn. But you pick something, and then we want to get that goal. We want to get those aha moments, and that's how we actually feel certain before we speak. And so if it's possible to feel certain before you speak, then everything else becomes much easier. The learning becomes a lot faster and easier. And then when you do get to the speaking phase, it's not really like a practice thing where you try to repeat stuff. You just get to use the language you already feel certain about. And of course, you will, in conversations, learn even more and probably get more certain and feel more confident as you speak. But the more important phase is here in the actual learning, where we want to feel sure about what we're saying. Okay? So it's actually possible to get those gold nuggets very easily because we know exactly how to give the brain that information. So it's kind of like an aha moment generator, if you will. These aha moments, these are things like when I'm teaching someone and wanting to help them feel like they actually understand it. So they maybe don't understand something, and then you've probably had those kinds of experiences before where you go from not understanding or feeling unsure to feeling sure. And I actually give lots of examples of this in the book, but most people have had this experience, whether for language learning or for anything else. It's those kinds of realizations you have where you finally understand something, you feel sure about using it, and then you can use it. You don't have to think about memorizing or studying a lot or trying to practice speaking or repeating any of that stuff. It's just, can we generate that and then feel certain before we speak? And that's what makes speaking a lot easier. So this is exactly what I do and what I recommend. And I wanted to see in this video if people had any questions about particular things so I could show you how this works. Just for anybody who's not familiar, I do explain exactly these steps in the book and how you can essentially generate these aha moments for anything you want, for vocabulary or grammar or pronunciation or anything like that that actually makes you feel certain about using the vocabulary. And what's great about this aha moment generator is really it's just the exact same thing over and over again, but used in slightly different ways. So I can give people examples of that if you have any questions about that here. But I just wanted to make a very quick video. Look at that, less than 20 minutes so far, explaining really what the main problem is for most people. And again, just to recap, a lot of people are learning things, but they're not actually getting the certainty that they need to speak. And so again, if you don't feel sure about your words, that's why you will struggle or hesitate or lose your words, or maybe have to translate in your head or organize sentences before you speak. It's just because you don't yet feel sure about using the language. And we're all about using the language here. That's what we focus on. So it's not just understanding things. It's nice if I can understand what other people say, but I want to communicate. I want to feel sure about using my own words. All right? But this is how you do it. So again, a lot of the things that people do are correct, and this is really the frustrating part for people, how it often feels endless, and I don't really know if I'm improving or not, because they're doing all this stuff and it is actually helping them understand more, but they still don't feel sure about some things. And so if you can get specific about what your issue is, like not pronunciation in general, but a specific sound or a word or a grammar point or whatever, it's much faster and easier to fix those problems, because there are solutions to every single one of these, again, using the aha moment generator that we use in the Certainty First method. But that's exactly what we're trying to do. So if anybody has any questions, rather than being too like theoretical here, I'd like to just give you examples. So if there's anything you struggle to say, it could be a sound or a word or whatever, I can show you how this works. I think a lot of longtime viewers will understand my process, but it's actually quite simple. We're essentially trying to compare different things and really help your brain understand the language in English. So I don't want to give you a translation, because a translation isn't really helping you understand something. It's not giving you that aha moment of discovery. It's just telling you the answer. And if you've ever played a game or tried to do a puzzle or something like that, you know that you like that moment when you actually find the solution, especially if you can discover it yourself. All right, let's see here. I'll go back through questions and see if anybody has anything. Again, I wanted to keep this video quite quick, just to explain to people what the real problem is, so anybody who's struggling with language knows that it's not about you. You're not bad at learning languages. You don't have any specific issues that are wrong with you that stop you from learning because you learned your native language. I'm sure everybody here speaks at least one language fluently. The only difference with learning a new language is that you never learn to feel certain about it. And I will say that even when people are learning their native language, and I describe this in the book as well, what's happening is that people are getting all this input, and it is providing them with certainty over time. But they could get it a lot more efficiently. And so we can take some of those ways that natives are learning and actually apply them to how we learn as a, like a second language, people call it, or another language, a foreign language, whatever. But you can get those aha moments much faster even than natives do if you're specific. So if you have a specific goal, I want to know how to use this word. And I can get that aha moment very quickly about that if I know what I'm looking for, and then I feel certain about using it. That's the idea. And so you can use this either with things that maybe you've been struggling with for a while. Like I know for me, there have been times where like I'm trying to learn some Japanese, and maybe like I've talked before about like the difference between made and made ni. And for a while, it took me a long time to be able to use that, even though it seems like a quite simple thing. I'm not going to teach it now, but this is just an example where you can feel uncertain about something for a really long time, and it can be frustrating for you, where maybe you get examples, you try to hear it in different ways, but it doesn't quite click for you. You don't get that moment where you actually feel sure about using it. Now, I will say that there are times when maybe you're just reviewing something so many times that you do feel sure about using it, but often you don't know why, But instead of trying to just force information into your brain, we can actually be much more efficient about this if we know what we're doing. Anyway, let me go back and answer any questions about this. But again, if there are specific things that you struggle to say, like you feel unsure about it and you would like to feel sure about it, let me know. And I should be able to clean that up for you. All right, CNC says, hi there, with a question mark. Hi there. Fayez says, you king, hi. There's some interesting comments here. And hola, says Mike. And Access says, assalamu alaikum, respected sir. I really like you. Your lectures make sense, incredibly helpful. Extremely grateful. Jazak Allah Kahir, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yes, thank you very much. I'm glad you're enjoying it. If you do, click the like button. share the videos and let people know, hey, we've got some good information here for people who want to learn, and these videos are ad-free if you have not noticed that already. So CNC gives me the gold nugget with the gold medal over there. Hi there from Pakistan, looking for some friends to practice English. Is there any WhatsApp or Facebook group that I can join? All right. Since you're mentioning specifically about learning with a Facebook group or whatever, the speaking part, the reason people look for that kind of stuff is because they don't feel sure when they learn. So they think, okay, I don't really feel sure. I guess I need to go to the next stage, which is the speaking practice, but you're essentially trying to speak before you feel certain and confident. So instead of doing that, and that is the traditional way of learning languages, where you try learning something, you don't really understand it, then you try speaking if you have anyone to speak with, and maybe you become certain about that, but often you do not. So it's not a guaranteed process. You don't always feel sure about everything you learn. And that's why people look for speaking practice partners. But with the certainty first approach, we're actually getting certain when we learn. So for me, for learning Japanese, I'm not in any kind of speaking practice thing or whatever. I just feel certain about what I want to say and then speak whenever I have the opportunity. Like I had a conversation. What was I talking about? I don't know. I even just yesterday, walking around talking to random people, like at a convenience store or I don't know, at a coffee shop or whatever, and just having conversations with people. I don't worry about needing to find people to practice with, because my improvement mostly comes from me by myself getting certain about what I want to say. So I can learn things and actually feel sure even before I use them. So you don't need to live in a place where you've got access to native English speakers. That's the whole point. And you can see that with traditional learning, that's a huge problem with this method. So if we have here's the learning, and then the learning doesn't really help you, so you think you have to speak in order to get fluent, but you don't have anyone to speak with, that's a huge problem, isn't it? But with mine, with Certainty First, it doesn't matter. Right? We don't have anyone to practice speaking with. So for anybody asking about whether they should practice speaking, don't spam the chat. Also, if you've got a comment, just post a comment, but I don't need 10 versions of it. Remember, that's why people are still looking for people to practice with, because you feel like you don't know the language. So it is nice if you can speak with people, but that's often not the real problem. The real problem is you don't feel sure about what you want to say. You're not sure about using your words. So you think if you practice speaking, you will develop that. And you can, it is possible, but it's like trying to swim to the United States from the United Kingdom instead of taking an airplane. So why make it a lot more difficult for yourself when you don't have to? Wouldn't you like to feel sure about your words before you use them? I would. And if I knew a way to do that, I would absolutely do that. And so when I was struggling to learn languages for a long time, that's what I did. I was looking for a way to actually figure out what the problem was. And so my problem was not a lack of speaking opportunities. It was a problem with not being able to, let's see here. All right, not being able to actually express myself when I did have people to practice with. All right, so even if you have people to practice with, lots of those learners are still getting stuck. So the problem is not speaking, it's feeling sure about what you want to say. And so it's much easier and faster to do that before you speak. If anyone disagrees, you're certainly welcome to. Again, it is possible to get fluent with the traditional language learning method, but it's no surprise that a lot of people do not, because they're not actually feeling certain. There's nothing that guarantees certainty about this. I could learn and not really understand. I could try speaking and not really understand. There is no guarantee here for getting certain and feeling fluent. But there is a guarantee with this, because you can keep learning until you actually do feel certain about using something. It's really that simple. All right, let's see. Hello, I'm Haney. Nice to see you there. So context make easy remembering the type of situation wants to refer to. Yep, that's some good advice, Mike. CNC says, it seems to me that as long as one is able to describe many things, one is able to use the language in different ways. Yes, and so it's a process of learning different ways to describe things, but also different ways to use the same language. So if I feel like a native speaker might know many different ways to describe money or different actions or things that a non-native would probably not know. And so again, it's not about like trying to learn something and repeat that again and again, because the other like really big issue for a lot of people is that, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it's hard to be prepared for real conversations simply by repeating some things that you learn in a class. So natives will express things differently. You will hear a variety of things that you just can't prepare for easily if you're learning specific things from a textbook. There's just too much variety there. Like the difference for me between textbook Japanese versus the Japanese used in like an anime, like a cartoon or whatever, it's like night and day. So completely different. So if I try to watch that stuff without actually being prepared for it, I'm going to have trouble. All right, PP, 4 P's and 2 Y's says, when I speaking or writing, I make a lot of mistakes. How can I fix that? Yeah, okay, so perfect example. Again, the traditional learning way is you're making mistakes because you don't actually feel sure about what you're writing, whatever it is. And I don't want to just be general or vague about this. It could be a specific error with a grammar point, like you don't know how to use whatever, like past perfect or subject verb agreement or whatever the thing is, or you don't know how to express certain ideas, whatever those are. But the mistakes come from here. And so if when you're learning, you don't feel sure, that's why you make mistakes when you speak. And that's what traditional learning does. So if you feel unsure, you're going to have problems speaking, you're going to have problems writing, all of that stuff. All of the mistakes come because you don't feel certain about what you're saying. But in the certainty first approach, exactly what I lay out in the book, it's actually very simple. We want to feel sure so we can correct these mistakes before we make them. So if I learn and actually understand the language well, then I don't need to make mistakes when I speak or when I write. Okay? So if you would like to do that, that's the whole point of this. We want to guarantee improvement because we know how to feel sure about the language. And so as we fix specific issues, or if we learn new things and understand them, we can do both of these things with this approach. So again, it's other things, like a lot of people would actually speak better without learning anything new if they just felt sure about using the vocabulary they already have. And this is a very fast and simple and easy thing to do, just feeling sure about the words you already know. So you already know them, but you don't feel sure about them. And it's actually very quick and easy to do that. So again, if anybody has any specific examples of things like that, it's easier to demonstrate that here. But that's the basic idea. All right. What did I miss? All right. Kakito says, Sensei, what do you mean by the grammar point that you've talked about? I've never heard of that term before. Could you explain? What grammar point? What specific one? I don't know what you mentioned. What did I say? I mentioned a grammar point by name. Let me know. Gato says, with the thumbs up and the fire over there. Aha says the Bambino. Timur says, I'm late. Nice to see you, Sensei. I don't know why everyone is calling me Sensei over here. CNC says, I've realized that sometimes I don't remember several words in my mother languages because of thinking in English. I think that I have to study Spanish again. Yeah, and sometimes we will forget things or just not be able to use them. And I talk about this in the book, how what you're trying to do is create a spider web where you have a bunch of connected ideas. So even if you forget one thing, even in your native language when you're speaking, and this happens, like it happens to me, it happens to everybody, where I might want to say something, but I forget the name of it or the name of a place or even the name of a person. And instead of just stopping the conversation, I can switch to something else. So I call this moving like water, but that's the basic idea, where because you have this network in place, and you get that by learning this way. You don't get that by feeling not so sure about a lot of information, because then you don't have anything. You've got no real connections that make it easy for you to switch from one thing to something else. So you will find times where you can't remember something, or maybe you don't think that's the best way to express it. If you know your words well, if you feel sure about them, you can easily switch to something else. All right, let's see. Santos says, hi from Mexico City. Thanks for your lesson. Glad to hear it. Again, if you do like the video, do click that like button. I can't read the Cyrillic. Hello. Hello there. Your methods are cool. Glad to hear it. Speak with Chat GPT Bro. Yes, so people can do that, but again, often people are not getting, even if you get corrections from Chat GPT, you may still struggle to speak if you don't feel sure about what you're saying. So even like if I try to learn Japanese with Chat GPT, often it will give me explanations that just sound like they came from a textbook. And I explained to Chat GPT that that's not actually helping me. And so I have to use it kind of in a way like I describe in the book about how I actually have to control Chat GPT to make sure it teaches me in a way that's actually giving me those aha moments. So where I actually feel sure about what I'm learning. I don't want information, I want certainty. All right, from Iraq, let's see. Please practice your English with me and me too. So again, remember, you don't need to wait for someone to practice your English. The problem is not the speaking. The problem is when you learn, you don't actually feel sure about what you want to say. That's it. So if you felt sure, you wouldn't need to do this speaking practice. And you don't do that in your native language either. You learn new things all the time. At first, maybe you hear something, you're not quite sure about using it because you don't know what it means. Like you hear something on the news or a new product or something like that. Like even when Chat GPT just came out and people are like, well, what's Chat GPT? I don't know much about it, so I can't talk about it. You know, I'm not certain about what it is or what it does or how to use it or whatever. So I can't speak about it, even in English, as a native English speaker. All right. So the problem is not like I need speaking practice to talk about Chat GPT. I actually just don't know much about it. So if I learned about that, if I felt sure about it, then I would be able to talk about it easily. Okay, so this is not a mysterious process. It's the same thing that happens in your native language as you learn new things. And if you learn something and know about it and feel sure about it, then you can actually use it well. All right, let's see. Did I skip somebody? So yes, I'll make this point again because every video, everybody has this because of that traditional idea, but you don't need to wait or look for someone to practice speaking with. You just need to feel sure about the words, and it's very easy to do that on your own. Moise says, hi Drew, I love you so much because of your insights into the language learning process. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Welcome back. PPP again, I make a mistake. Oh, I got that one already. Did I skip somebody up here before? I got too many extra comments here. Let's see. Alessandro says, we are getting old together, my friend. I followed you for too long now before your daughter was born. God bless you. Wow. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, you know, time catches up with us all, especially when I'm feeling lazy and I let the beard grow out. I look older, I guess. But yeah, you know, who knows how much longer I'll be doing this for. We'll see. But what I'd like to do is get more back into the software stuff that will be the next phase of what I'm working on. All right, Timmer says, what do you think about speak with women for improve English skills? Maybe is the best way. Now, you're adding like an additional layer of complexity and challenge to that process. So let's apply the like speaking, we'll put this one over here, we'll speaking with women. And assuming you mean speaking with women as in trying to talk with women. I'm sure you're joking here, but let's actually look at what's happening. So you learn something, and then the real question is, do you feel sure about it or do you not? So if you feel sure about your words, then speaking is easy, and that's what we're doing up here. So we learn something, we feel sure about it, we wait. Like we don't move forward until we feel sure. So we feel sure first, and then we actually go forward over here. But what most people do is they learn something and they don't feel sure, and then they try to speak, and then they don't feel sure, and then they try to talk to women, and that's going to be even worse for a lot of men because they will be shy and worried about talking to the woman, even if they are, good speakers of the language. So a lot of men are nervous about talking to women. So if you're not even sure about using the language, that could be worse. But a way to fix that potentially is if you ask women for help. So this is a kind of like cheating thing where you can get, talking with women about stuff. If you go up to women and you say, hey, I have a question, or can I get your opinion about something, then they're all about talking. So it's a lot easier. Like if I don't know something in the language, then I go directly here to the speaking with women where I say, hey, like I heard some people can say this in the language, but I also heard I can do this. Do you know which one is correct or how? And you just start the conversation that way. So if I were trying to do language learning and talk with women, that's what I would do if I were doing that. But I don't. I'm a good man, I got my wife and kids at home. I guess I talk to enough women just like around, around my neighborhood or whatever, but not really to learn the language so much as just to use it. All right, good question though, Moise again. How about putting more effort into listening to understandable input, comprehensible input? So I've talked about comprehensible input. We'll put that up here as well. So you can think about all of this stuff as comprehensible input, assuming you understand it. And that's what it means, like comp input. So comprehensible input, this just means like things I can understand in the language itself. So I'm not using translations. It's not too difficult for me. I can watch a movie and understand most of it or all of it in English, and that's going to improve my speaking. And it can. So a lot of people are doing this, and you see a lot of people talking about comprehensible input, but most people don't have a problem with understanding the language. That's not the real issue. And so like some people do, obviously, if you're learning things that are at too high, too high a level for you, then obviously you're going to struggle with speaking. But if you're understanding things, you can understand a lot and get a lot of comprehensible input, but still struggle to speak if you don't feel sure about using your words. So comprehensible input is where a lot of people stop. They just continue to get more input. It's the same thing here. I'm learning and learning and learning, and I feel like I understand more over time. But I will probably not feel so sure and then maybe think I just have to speak. I need more speaking practice, or I need more words or whatever. That's generally what people think. So they learn things, they don't understand them, they don't really feel sure about using it, and that's the important step. Even if you understand something, you can still not feel sure about using it. That happens all the time. So in general, you understand a lot more than you can speak. That's the basic idea for everybody. Like everybody understands a lot more than they can speak. And your goal really is to try to expand this so that you can, keep understanding more and keep speaking more, that kind of thing. Like both of these should continue to expand outward. But often a lot of people they have like a really big understandable passive income, or not passive income, passive understanding. It's good to have passive income too, but in this case, they have only a little bit of active vocabulary because they don't feel certain about using it, okay? So if I could make this an even better little chart over here, maybe I'll mess around with this. Let me know if this is not clear for you, but I really want to make sure this makes sense. So it doesn't honestly matter what you're doing to improve. Like comprehensible input is a kind of broad term for lots of different things. You could be reading it or understanding it from a movie or TV show or whatever. But you can try to think about the traditional, so we'll put like the trad approach up here, and then we've got certainty first down here. So the trad approach is you learn something And then like in kind of flow, this is like a flow chart where these kinds of graphs. We have kind of a decision diamond here. So you actually go like from here, there's no decision to be made at all. Most people just go directly from learning to try to speak, whether they understand something and feel certain about it or not. It doesn't really matter. So do you understand something? Yes, no, doesn't really matter. I'm going to try speaking and see if I can use it anyway and feel more sure about it. And then again, this process just repeats either with new information or you try repeating the thing you already learned but maybe don't feel sure about. But with certainty first, like what's actually happening here is like you learn something and then we've got almost like a decision diamond here, where do you understand something? Do you feel sure about it or not? If yes, like we'll just put a little S here for sure. If yes, then you go on to speak and you can feel sure about using the language. If not, you go back and get more examples and make sure you do feel sure about it. But this is how we can guarantee that you learn and feel sure about something before you say it. Now, obviously, there will be times when you speak and you also learn even more, or you even have questions when you speak about unrelated things. You know, that happens. So I could be feeling sure about something, I'm in a conversation and maybe I learn something new and I don't feel sure about that new thing. Whatever, that process happens. But you can repeat this again in order to do that. But this is the big difference, where you don't know if you understand something or not. You're not sure. You try speaking anyway. You're looking for a speaking practice partner, and that's why you see that in the comments of these videos and really everything else. Like any other video you'll find on YouTube, it will be people looking for speaking practice partners because they didn't actually solve the problem to begin with. So you can do this. You can learn in that way, but there is an alternative. And for me, I wanted to feel sure about my words before I said them. So I didn't, make mistakes and do all that stuff. I wanted to actually communicate well instead of struggling or having to translate in my head or think about whatever. And now my Japanese is good. There are still plenty of things I don't know, which is fine and normal. But I'm using this approach in order to learn new things, feel sure about them, and then speak. So that's really all you have to do. Let's see. All right. With the ILLO. Hey guys, I'm Habiba from Egypt, and I want a girl to practice my speaking with her. All right. Well, good luck out there. Again, remember, if you just want the girl like that, that's kind of a separate issue. But you don't need someone to practice speaking with. Again, the purpose is to get that gold, find the gold nuggets, and it's a lot easier to do that even by yourself, because I don't need to wait for anybody else to feel sure about my words. All right, Amrit says, I understand your method, sir. I made a lot of progress using your method. There are specific sentences that you have to learn through repetition. Example sentences like, did you hear that? Well, if you're saying what I'm recommending doesn't work with everything, that isn't true. You certainly can learn things by repeating them. You may not really understand them, but you can repeat things well enough and many, many times until it becomes automatic for you. But for me, I'd much rather get that gold faster. I don't want to have to pray or hope or wish or whatever, where I'm just thinking like I'm doing all this stuff. I'm watching all these videos, I'm reading things, but I don't feel more sure about expressing myself. That's the real issue. So if you don't feel sure, then you have to get sure, but you don't have to spend time repeating lots of stuff in order to do that. All right. And it's just a lot easier to explain fluent communication to people in this way, rather than talking about how it works, like, mentally or whatever. It's just thinking about it in the opposite way of, if I feel unsure or uncertain, then I can't speak. So I know that is the thing. I have to unblock that issue. And so you don't have to really think about anything else. It's a much simpler process this way. Let's see. And again, you say that to learn a language, we have to get rid of doubts, but how to do it specifically. For example, I have doubts in some word, so I should just watch examples of how to use that word to get rid of doubts. It depends on the specific thing you're trying to get. But again, I lay this all out in the book for vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, and even just developing conversational fluency in general by feeling more confident about the words. But typically, it might depend on like what the word is. So I show different examples of how this works. But if you give me a specific word you're having trouble with, I could show you how it works. But again, it's not just necessarily getting examples, but we want to try to solve the actual uncertainty we have. So it's not like learning a word, it's I'm not sure about how to pronounce it, or I'm not sure about how to use it, or I'm not sure about whatever. So we begin with the specific issue, and sometimes we learn something, like I'll just give you one example from the book. I think I put this in the book. Now I don't remember. Pardon me, my throat is still a little bit sore, but I'll give you an example of this. Now, when I call this basically an aha moment generator, where we're trying to get a variety of examples or naturally varied review, but we want to make sure that we understand the thing and try to solve that specific problem. So let's say, and I've given this example before, I think, but it's been a while. What was that word? You could give me any word. I'm trying to think of something, but that specific example, what was that word I used? Now, what was that? Now I'm like blanking on the example. But it was like the typical thing that people try to do is just like get example sentences of something. And that can work. Like you can get example sentences assuming you understand something, but it also depends on like the specific meaning of a particular thing, or the use of it, or whatever. No, I'm not trying to make it difficult for you. I'm trying to remember the actual word that I used. Okay, it was dwell. Actually, dwelling was the word I used. All right, so let me show you how this works with a specific meaning. Let's say you hear that like a dwelling, you hear a particular sentence like my dwelling is hot because my, like, I don't know, my like I can't turn off my heater even in the summertime, or something like that. And so you have a picture of me maybe in a house, and I'm talking about my dwelling, like where I live, my dwelling. And so you hear this word, and at first you're like, okay, dwelling means house or something like that. You have a kind of idea like, okay, Drew is talking about this thing, and he used this word to describe it, but maybe you're not sure exactly what it means. So in that case, the question your brain asks is, like, how can I use this word, or what exactly does it mean? Like, does it mean house and only that, or could it mean other things as well? So what we want to do is like get other examples, and one way I talk about doing this is with a Google image search. So that's one of the techniques I show. So this is not just about getting like different sentence examples of something, but especially in a case where maybe you could see what the word means by seeing a bunch of different examples of it. That is a very quick way to feel certain about what the meaning of something is. And so in this case, we have one example of a word, and often with one example, we don't really feel very sure about understanding something. We might, but we don't really feel sure. We have maybe 80%, 90% or better understanding, but we don't really feel completely sure about it. And if we don't feel sure, then we might not use the word, okay? So in this case, let's say I do a Google image search, the kinds of things that I might find would be, let's say I find, like here's an apartment building, that's a kind of dwelling. Here is an igloo, like an ice house, you know, those little ice houses. Or I could be even like a fish tank. I'm not drawing these very well, but here's a fish living in this. So the fish tank is the dwelling for a fish. As I get more examples that answer this specific question for me, that's where I feel sure about using it. So each new example is actually asking or answering a question in my mind, even if I don't know what specifically that question is. But often, if you take a moment to think about it, I'm not giving you example sentences to help you understand something. I'm giving you examples of a thing that answer a particular question, whatever that is. So if you hear a word like dwelling, like you could think, that means house. And so maybe I get a translation in a different language of just house. But it doesn't just mean house as in like this physical thing. It really means somewhere where something lives. So it could be a cave, it could be an underwater place, it could be a tree where a squirrel lives or whatever. All of those different places are dwellings. And so as you get more examples of that thing, that's where you feel sure about using that particular word. So the kinds of examples you get really depend on whatever the uncertainty you have about that word is. So if you feel unsure about the pronunciation, then you should probably hear whatever the pronunciation is, and by multiple speakers if you can. So we don't want to hear just one teacher say it. We'd like to hear many people and people using it naturally in conversations, because me using the word dwelling clearly and slowly might be different from how people say it quickly and with an accent or something in a conversation. And so all of these things are really answering even small questions that your brain has. But if you are specific, if you can direct your brain, and I talk about all this in the book about like specifically how you do that. But this is a kind of example where this is not just about getting different written sentences. It's whatever can help you feel sure about using something because you understand actually what it means. So if I'm trying to learn new vocabulary, a Google image search is a really good way to do that because it's going to give me a bunch of examples. So this is not just about example sentences. But again, the point really is to feel sure about using things, usually with a variety of examples. Now, if I'm the one who's a teacher and I'm trying to help you understand something, usually I know the kinds of things you're looking for and I can give you that information without you asking for it. That's what I do. Like in Fluent for Life, that's the whole point of that program. So we want to make sure that all these different questions that you have or that you might have, we answer them before you speak. So if I can make you feel sure and confident answering all these questions for you with a variety of methods. Sometimes it could be a story, sometimes it's a visual example, sometimes it could be different sentences that help you understand something, or these are working together. But again, it's the variety of those things that actually helps you understand so you feel confident about using stuff. Let's see. Chrono again. Drew, do you have an example of how you learned certain grammar point in Japanese that made you have an aha moment? I think like for madeni that I explained before, I like part of it, the first thing I'm trying to do as a learner myself is like, if I don't know, and it's obviously it's more difficult when you're doing it yourself, but certainly possible. And it's certainly a lot easier if you're using naturally varied review like I talk about in the book or like I'm describing here. But the difference between, for example, like made and madeni, it was usually like, because I'm not a Japanese teacher, so I can't teach myself Japanese, but I can look for similar examples that are like answering the question in my mind about how something works. Again, it's these questions or worries or doubts that stop you from speaking. So we need to answer that specific question. So I'll give you the English here. Made versus made. ni. And this is Japanese. I'm just writing it so you can read what it says. But I was kind of having trouble like understanding exactly the difference between these and how to use them. And what helped me was comparing sentences that had both of these in it. So I was like, just a very simple comparing light versus dark. So in this case, if I'm trying to teach something like this to someone, I wouldn't just teach made or made ni by itself. I would give you specific examples, and this is what I did to teach myself what it was. So I was looking for examples of both of these, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I finally get it. You know, we have a specific time period like this, and made is like, we're really talking about up until a particular point. But made ni is like focusing on the point itself. And then, and that's where and this is made ni, like this. Ni. Not I janakute, ni. And so, again, when I'm thinking about like going from like koko kara koko made ne, like if I'm trying to explain it in Japanese, like I'm talking about from here to here. But koko made ni, I'm talking about this specific thing like a deadline or whatever, something like that. So I'm comparing these two things, and I want to make sure like I understand the difference between what they mean, but in context. I'm not just like, what is the difference? It's like, what is the difference for particular situations? Because often there are questions about grammar or vocabulary where in one situation you get one answer, but in another situation you get a different answer. So again, it's really just answering the specific question for usually a specific situation. So I was looking for this kind of situation, we're talking about time, or we're talking about, do I need to do something by this time? Like in the English, we would describe it as like by or until, something like that. Or before, if we're just like from this point to this point over here. So when I figured it out, I said, I have the aha moment about the difference between these, and now I can talk about like made ni easily for, deadlines or something like that, like darega ga kairu made ni nanka shinai to ikenai. Like I have to do something before somebody else, comes home or whatever. But in that case, I'm using it because I understand how it works now, and I feel sure about using it so I can use it in my conversations. Before that, I could understand when other people were using it just from context, but I still didn't feel sure about using it myself. So it took me a while because, again, I'm teaching myself, and often these are kind of specific things you have to do, but I'm pretty good at doing it even for myself, but it's a lot easier if you have someone else do it for you, obviously. Let's see, CNC again. The funniest thing is I don't remember several words in Spanish, but I remember them in English, so it's weird. Yeah, and that happens. I even know some words for things in Japanese that I don't know in English. That happens. Certainty is the key for fluency, but how can you be sure that I reach the level of certainty? You are talking about different situation equals different meanings, so how many of them are necessary? Well, this is, again, not about knowing the whole language. It's just for something you want to say, do you feel sure about using it or not? So this is not a complicated issue. It's just, I want to say something or express an idea. Can I do that? If I cannot do that, then I don't feel sure about it. So I don't have to be prepared for like every situation possible or whatever. I'm still in conversations. I could meet lots of people from Japan who have a tricky accent that I'm unfamiliar with, just like I meet people, in the United States who have a tricky accent as well. And maybe it's easier for me because I've heard so many different accents, but I could be, listening to some like Irish or Scottish English, and it's a little bit more difficult to hear. I can usually understand it, but again, it happens. But I'm not trying to be perfect or prepare for everything. It's just, if you think about it more like the traditional way of learning doesn't make you feel sure about a lot of the things you want to say, and that's why you get stuck. But the certainty first approach is about if you can, and it is possible, to feel sure about things before you say them. So that should be the goal, because it's a lot easier to do that before you have someone to practice with. Did native English study grammar in school? Yes. Everybody has to do that. I believe everyone needs to focus more on listening since that is how kids learn, but people are more concerned about speaking right from the beginning. Well, again, the point is not like listening versus speaking. And if you think about what children are doing, they're actually watching and listening and touching and feeling and tasting, and they're using all of their senses in order to learn something. So if you put a blindfold on a child and told them a bunch of stuff, they're not going to understand it very well. But if you show them and they maybe get to experiment and answer those questions, then it's going to be a lot easier for them to use the language. So it's don't worry about like, is it reading or speaking or whatever. The point is, what specific thing do I need to get to certainty as quickly as possible? So like in the case of dwelling, like hearing the word dwelling again and again probably isn't going to help me very much. But maybe if I heard that kind of like I did with seeing the different examples, in that case, seeing those examples is a much faster way to get to certainty than even hearing like the same kinds of examples, but in a written form or just listening to it. So if I can look at a page which has a whole bunch of different examples, and this is why my app, Frederick, does the same thing. So you get multiple examples of every word you're learning. So that way it really helps you understand the vocabulary much better. It's not just listening, it's how quickly do we get to certainty. Let's see. All right, what did I miss? Let's see. That's a hard level. Trying to flirt. Yes. But again, flirting is a lot easier with women if you ask them their opinion about stuff. There you go. That's the secret. All right, Cian says, let's suppose that you are very sure about your words, but when you have to talk to a woman, you'll see that all the words are going to fade because of shyness. Yes, again, that is an issue. I don't know, maybe one wants to show off one's skills. Yeah, and that is a thing, and that's certainly impressive to women if you can actually speak with them. I've learned that myself. Let's see, I've used your methods and improved significantly in both speaking and writing. The best approach that worked for me was deep learning and focus around one topic at a time. Yep, that's exactly it. So feel sure about something and then become a good speaker in that thing. It's pretty easy how it works. And you don't have to do lots of boring repetition because you get variety in how you're learning, which speeds up the learning process and actually makes it interesting for you. All right, your class is really great. Here is Patrick, teacher. Now I am a coordinator for a language program here in Brazil. All right. Let's see, maybe the word drive. So drive is another interesting one if you're just looking for general vocabulary. And typically, remember that we don't want to just take a word like this, like what does the word drive mean? Because it actually has a variety of meanings depending on the situation. So as best you can, if you hear a new word or something like that, try to remember where you heard it or some information about the situation that can help you remember and understand that. And then you're looking for more examples of that kind of thing, like driving could mean operating a vehicle, or we could mean like driving something like I'm trying to push a particular thing like a golf ball. I hit the big golf club like this. I'm not going to draw this very well. It's kind of round on the edge like that. That's called a driver because we're driving the ball in the same way that a bunch of cowboys. I'm not going to draw this very well. So we have some cowboys on horses like that. They're driving cattle. So I could drive someone away in that case. So you can see how they become similar, and as you get these maybe subgroups of things, it helps you understand the core meaning. But in general, we're looking for vocabulary with some kind of situation. So that's kind of a cowboy hat, but of course I'm drawing it badly because I'm trying to draw it quickly. What I need is AI to just that would be awesome if I'm up here and I can use AI to say, hey, give me a picture of this or whatever, and AI just creates it for me. Maybe I will do something like that in the future. We'll see. But for now, you are stuck with my bad drawings. Let's see. How to know the difference between words if they have the same sounds. Again, this is the same idea where we don't just look at a word, we look at the context of what the thing is. So there are some words that sound the same and mean different things, and there are other words that mean the same thing and sound different or completely different. So when you're getting examples of things, we want to not just look at one thing by itself, we want to connect that thing to as many pieces as possible. That's how we get that web that makes things very strong in your mind. And just like a spider web, even if you lose one or two pieces of it, you still have other connections that let you use it well. All right. Yeah, so by the context. Bro, I like the bro on there. Come on, bro. All right, like in the context of law or alone. Let's see. Thank you. Morning, Drew says, Tom, nice to see you there. Does dwelling mean housing? It just means a place where something lives. So again, if your question is, does it mean housing, but you look at something like a cave, or it could even be like, a big open area where something lives, then it just means a place where something lives. It's not even a physical structure or necessarily like a covering of some kind. And that's why that's why we want to feel sure about things by getting as many examples as we need. If you still have questions, get more examples. And this is again the way to do this by yourself rather than needing to wait for a teacher. Like, you can get this information, and it's a lot easier than when I started learning Japanese 20 years ago, and I had to think about like I didn't have YouTube or whatever. I was at the actual library trying to find information. And I got it, like the story I tell in the book about how I'm learning grammar from Japanese children's stories, and I give the same advice to people in the book for learning English. As I understand, dwelling means a place where you can live. Yeah, so it just means like a place where something lives. It's not even just people specifically, but anything could have a dwelling. All right. Let's see, Access again. The example of Will Smith movie poster is insane. I was amazed reading it. Yeah, I actually talk about that. So Access is talking about an example I give in the book, which you can click on the link in the description below this video to get. But this is how I was in a Korean restaurant and I taught myself some Korean. I figured out how it worked just by understanding, kind of using this puzzle process here of looking for more examples. I can tell the story very quickly, but I was here in Japan, but in a different city. I was in Fukuoka waiting for a friend of mine, and I'm at a Korean restaurant. And this was just a really good example of how it's actually possible to teach yourself a language even when you don't know that language, if you get all the clues you need to understand something. So I'm sitting at a table, and there is a movie poster on the wall for a Will Smith movie called After Earth, which I had not seen. So it was, I guess, being promoted in theaters at the time. But because the poster was in Korean, I couldn't read any of it. But I said, all right, I don't have anything to do right now, so let me see if I can try to figure some of this out. Because I'm just sitting there, I don't even think I had, I don't remember when After Earth came out, but I wasn't, looking at my phone or anything. I was just sitting there and thinking, oh, here's an interesting kind of example. But part of this, I won't tell the whole story because it's in the book already. But one of the keys to this was my understanding already of movie posters and how they usually work. And typically the names of the actors are at the top of the movie poster. And in this movie, After Earth, it's actually got Will Smith and his son in the movie. So we've got Will Smith up here, and then we've got his son's name is Jaden Smith. And so I guessed, I said, okay, I bet the names of these are going to be up at the top somewhere. And if you look at the movie, I show the poster in the book, but you can just find a copy of this in Korean. But I don't remember the characters exactly. I think it was it's kind of something that looks like that a little bit. I don't remember it exactly. I don't speak Korean either. But so I'm looking at it and I see this name, and this name are the same. Like the characters for it are exactly the same. So these two ones are different. So I guessed, okay, those are probably the first name. But if these things look the same because they both have the same last name, then like that's kind of interesting. And so Korean, I guessed, works similarly to Japanese, where you have like phonetic characters for something, because the first and last character was the same for both of these names. And I was just like, wow, look at that. It's like this same character that means basically Sue. So the TH sound, I'm guessing, is not in Korean. And so similarly to Japanese, like you would write this in Japanese as like Su, Mi, Su. So it would be the same character for the front and back. And then that same character was also in the TH sound here for the name of the movie, After Earth. So it was like, Asu or whatever, however you pronounce it. But anyway, so that was an example of where you can actually just get the examples. Part of it is using what you already know. So I'm using context, as people are mentioning, but I'm just looking at it to see if I can find any clues, and often you can if you take a little bit of time to learn. Now, if the two actors had been different, it would not have worked. But it was just kind of a happy accident that this was possible. Anyway, that whole story is in the book. So Tom says, download Frederick right now. Yes, you can also get Frederick. That's another way of using this same approach, but it's for learning grammar and vocabulary and pronunciation with my app. Ovalog says, can you gift your book to me, please? I will pay you once I will have that much money. I can't really afford it now. I don't even really have Master or Visa cards. Where do you live? You should get someone to buy it for you. Ask for a Christmas present or something like that. It's only a few dollars. Daddy says, hello, greatest English teacher in the world. How are you? I'm still happy when I have an opportunity to be here. Well, I don't know if I'm the greatest, but thank you for joining me. It's nice to see you. I hear new words and practice a lot, but when I speak, I don't find them. Yeah, and so that means you learn something, but you don't feel sure about it, and then you try to use it, and then you struggle to speak. So if you feel sure about the word first, and you would like to do that, that's what I show in the book, or that's really what I talk about in all of my videos, but just giving people different examples of how this works. And quadruple P double Y says, thank you so much. CNC says, how much time do you spend studying Japanese every day? I don't really study Japanese. I mean, when I think about learning, I try to get different kinds of practice in, like practice, in the sense of like there's something specifically I want to know, but like maybe I'm unsure about it, so I might try to get some answers, like the example before about Madeni. But it depends on what I'm trying to learn. Sometimes I'm just enjoying some content without trying to worry about like needing to understand all of it. So lately, I actually found I started watching the Attack on Titan anime series, which I had not seen. Like I don't watch a lot of anime anyway, but I thought it sounded like an interesting story and a good way to learn some Japanese. But I'm not like studying it intensively. I'm just watching the show. So I finished that, and now I'm watching Kimetsu no Yaiba. So I'm watching that anime now. And so there's some stuff that's used again and again, and it's not really what I would recommend for like specific doubt erasing, if you're trying to like get an episode or whatever. But I'm going back and reading also so I actually have the book. Let me see. I think I have it here. So like one of the kind of naturally varied review things I would do, although I'm not like, I don't necessarily have like a doubt about specific things, and some of the stuff in this, it's like military vocabulary or other things that I just don't know. And if I get too much of that at one time, I have to look things up, and it's kind of a pain. But so this is the book, the first story for Attack on Titan. And so I'm getting a little bit of review by watching the show and then actually reading the comic. But I could go back and review things, and if I watched it again, I would feel more confident about it as well. But I don't I don't know. I'm not in like a kind of specific learning phase or something other than sometimes studying kanji. But I mean, honestly, I feel like I'm trying to get my book finished. So I've been doing a lot more of that. And I know it's taken a while for chapter 7 to get out because it really is the trickiest chapter in the whole book, because it's almost like taking the whole book and putting it into one chapter, just so people can get the whole idea from that. But yeah, so I don't like spend a lot of time learning that, but I watched, I don't know, maybe for like 2 hours, like some anime episodes or whatever. So I'd watch a couple of those, but it's not for like deep learning or anything. It's more for the story, and I do learn some new vocabulary. Like now I know like Chosa Heidan or whatever, which is like, some military word for like, scouting groups and, other things like that I don't really use in my day-to-day life. But there are, examples you will hear again and again. Like in English, it's like, like what the, or like what in the world or whatever. And so the Japanese equivalent of that is like, itai doyu koto? Like he's like somebody is like, nani yutteru no? Like what's happening here, what's going on or whatever. Or like nanto ga wakenai or whatever. You will hear these same kinds of patterns again and again. But it's, again, not so much me doing like the specific training for answering a particular question. Like the thing I'm doing now is just enjoying the language. English at Night says, what does feed off data mean? Feed means to give food to someone, so I'm not sure what it means. All right, so this is a good example here. Like if we take a word like feed, and when you learn it as a non-native learner, you get typically one example, like the meaning that you used here, which is give food to someone. And so as a native speaker, we actually learn many examples of this, and like a feed could be anything from like a feed on Twitter, which is just essentially providing something, or it's like a list or whatever, or I could feed my ticket into the ticket machine. So it's not food, but I'm putting something into something else. So if I can like feed off of something, that also means I'm drawing some kind of energy or information or something like that. So it's more of a transfer of one thing to something else. But you have the specific meaning of food transferring into somebody's mouth. And so when you start learning things and you get naturally varied review, you learn, like feed actually has quite a number of uses, and that's why we can use it to talk about, like, I'm going to like feed some paper into a machine over here. Or again, feeding a ticket into a ticket machine, same kind of idea. But feed off of something would mean I'm drawing energy off of something else, to feed off of something else. So if, like, let's say I feed off of my friend's excitement. So he gets excited about things and I take some of that energy and I feel excited too. I'm feeding off of that in the same way that like a vampire might feed off of someone physically, like drinking their blood. All right. But so you notice, like, as a teacher, this is the kind of thing I do in Fluent for Life, where I can answer those questions before you even ask them, because I know what it's like to like the kinds of things your brain is going to be interested in, what it's going to want to know. So you can do this by yourself, obviously, but this is what we're looking for. We're trying to give you a range of examples that really make you understand things. But it's, again, really important to make sure you understand these things in context. So if you hear a different use of something, like, I heard like feed off of something else, like feed off of data, like I'm trying to get information and understanding from data. That's what that would mean. But that's why it's important to understand the context of things and try to see what's happening, not just focusing on the vocabulary by itself. If you want to learn any language, date a woman from this language. Yeah, that can be helpful if she's a good teacher as well. I think that doesn't work at all. Yeah, I mean, like like I wouldn't recommend that. And I mean, I can say, even being married to a Japanese woman, she doesn't teach me very much. I do learn by proximity, so I'm close with her and I hear her talking or whatever. But if I ask her questions about stuff, she will just say like, "Mo isogashi yo," like I'm busy. I don't have time for all that. And so, yeah, like it kind of depends. I can't read that. You missed my question about Neil Armstrong. I did? Question about Neil Armstrong? Let me know again. I guess if I like skip over something, it's not because I'm trying to skip anybody, but let me know if you have that question again. All right, nice to see you there, Bridget. And when I say I like swimming, Americans perceive the word swimming as a noun, the act of swimming in general, or as a verb. I like to swim. Yeah, they would think about both of those things. Like they think about the activity of what you're doing. And I mean, honestly, people aren't really thinking about it in that deep of a way. You would probably be thinking about it more deeply than they would. But either way, it's not like they're like, oh, he's using it as a noun or whatever. They're just saying he likes this activity. So you can say, I like to swim, like as an activity, or I like swimming as an activity. Either way, you're saying the same thing. How long you live in Japan? Here you would say, how long have you lived, or how long have you been living in Japan? I've been here on and off, so not continuously, but on and off for about 23 years. How can I be sure that I reach the level? Certainly, you're talking about given that different situation, different meaning, so how many uses of a word are necessary? Again, the point is not to try to learn every use of a word. It's like for a specific question you have, or something that happens in the moment, like you learn a word, but you're not sure what it means, just get that and try to connect, like, here's a situation and I hear some vocabulary connected with that. I don't need to try to learn every use of the word. That information is certainly nice if I can get it easily and quickly, like I deliver as a teacher, but you don't need to know all that. It's just, here's a particular word. I heard something. I'm not quite sure what it means, but it was used in this context. So I should get an answer to that question if I care. Maybe you don't care. You don't have to get it. It's the idea here is not to like feel sure about every use of every word. It's just, do I feel sure about what I want to say? Or am I not understanding something because I don't actually understand what I heard? If I'm not sure, somebody said something like the example about feeding off of something else. If I don't know what that means because I think feed means this, and now I hear a different use of the word, then either I need to expand my understanding of it, or I just like add an additional meaning or something like that. But if you care and it's important to you, then get that question answered. So this is not a complicated process of like you needing to like feel certain about every use of every word, because even native speakers don't do that. But for the things you do want to say, you should feel sure about talking with them. And at the very base of all this, comparing the traditional way of learning to what I'm recommending with certainty first, the point is more, how can we make it easier for people to go from learning to speaking? We want to make this process simple and quick and easy. That way you don't have to learn something and then get stuck because you don't have a practice partner. That's a huge problem for a lot of people. So they learn something, they don't really feel sure about it, so they are waiting for someone to talk with. But you don't have to wait for someone to talk with, because the answer is not practicing the thing, it's just feeling certain about it. So your brain has questions about what it means, get the answers to that. Like often, even if you could speak about things, it's not necessarily giving you the answer. So we want to make sure we find the answers we need. And so you often have some clues. And then the question is, do you care about getting that? Like I might be reading this book and there are, I don't know, like a bunch of words here, like in a particular page or something that I don't know. And I'm just like, I don't know, do I care about knowing this right now? Is it like, am I, I'm kind of weighing my time. Like I'm like, so here's an example page. Like, let's say I'm reading some of this and I'm just like, all right, like I get that one, I get that one, I get that one. I understand the story and what's going on, but like, I didn't know this one word. I mean, I kind of understand generally what it means, but maybe I'm not sure about using it. But do I care about that? Probably not. Like here's some military word that maybe I could learn it, but Do I care? Nah, not really. And so it depends on the situation. If I hear something like when my wife was pregnant with our children, it was important for me to actually learn the vocabulary for talking with the doctors at the hospital. More than some military vocabulary from Attack on Titan. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at when we're just understanding. Like the particular questions you have, do you need to get answers to that? Is that stopping you from speaking? Is it important to you? Then get those answers. Let's see. CNC again. A few days ago, I learned the name of my fingers, pinky ring, index and all that. Yeah, and you can get more specific. There are even like names for specific joints, or specific sections of your finger. Then you can go as deep as you like. Like if you're like a hand surgeon, you probably know the names for all that stuff. Or just be sure to use each separately. So again, just think about the specific questions you have. If you feel unsure about using something, then get the specific thing. Thanks, Tom. Are you calling me Tom Hanks? Is that what that is? Okay, I have problems with understanding some structures, and one in particular that I remember is that sentence about Neil Armstrong. What sentence about Neil? Is a sentence about Neil Armstrong? That didn't help me. And now you called me Tom Hanks. I guess I'll look like Castaway Tom Hanks after a while if I keep letting my hair grow. Fridays Fur Davs says, good morning, teacher. Long time no see. Chrono again. Drew, how do you learn kanji? I use a Heisig's method, HEI. So Heisig, he wrote a series of books called Remembering the Kanji, but you can find those, and I think even the PDFs are available too. But he basically talks about like the specific method is using imaginative memory, because you're essentially trying to use stories about the kanji to remember them, to understand what's happening, because it's kind of hard to do it visually. And he uses actually a very good description in the book about why he uses imaginative memory. And I talk about this a little bit actually in my How to Remember Any English Word training. But there are, I think, 240 or something radicals. So those are the pieces of kanji. Like if we have, like this one, like that. So like this is a thing and this is a thing over here. It's too difficult to try to remember them visually, because it's like looking at them through a kaleidoscope. That thing, you've got little pieces of plastic or glass inside of it, and you spin around and it changes the shape of it. And so that's kind of what happens when people are trying to learn that way. But if you can learn essentially telling stories about things like that, or using your imaginative memory to think about it, like in part visually, but in part being able to tell a story about what the meaning of things are, that way it doesn't even matter if you remember. Like for me, I had let's see. I think I did an example of this before, I think. What was that kanji I used? Let's see if I can remember it. So this is the kanji for snake, hebi. And so I remember this is like, you got a bug over here, and this is a house, and this is kind of like a slumped body. But it becomes more of a story here, where it's like, we've got some kind of like poison feeling or whatever. And if you thought like bugs are bad, like a snake will have you, in your house slumped over, like the poison is that bad if you get bit by a snake. And so it's more of a thing for remembering kanji that way. You can use mnemonics in that way because you take time to write it. So mnemonics, as I also explain in that memory training, are less helpful for speaking because you have to do it quickly. But if you have time to read or write stuff, you can take more time to learn that way. Let's see. In my case, sometimes I watch some videos related to crime and stuff that I like, even though I don't use the vocabulary in real life because it's very spooky. Yeah, and it's okay. Often you can learn something, but you probably would feel pretty confident speaking about it if you had to. Where have you been all these years? What do you mean? I've been right here. Louis just says, I just bought your book, The Strangest Fluency Secret. Awesome. Thank you very much. Let me know if you enjoy it. I'm still working on the end. As far as I can remember, you were teaching from Tokyo, Japan. I've been to Tokyo, but I live in Nagasaki, actually. And I was in Kyoto for a couple of years. Let's see. Are you still teaching? Yeah. So I'm teaching you guys. I don't have any classes or anything like that. By now, 112 pages are very interesting. Later, I'm going to read them. Glad to hear it. Yeah, let us know. And again, the reason I'm releasing it in pieces is because I wanted to see if anybody has any questions or they don't understand anything, so I can make it the best book I can about this subject. Emerald says, what framework going to follow if you're going to learn French? I already know a lot of English, and your method helps to solidify that. How are you going to approach a new language? Well, the certainty first method works for any language. That's why I used it to learn Japanese and still use it to learn Japanese, and I use it to teach English as well. So if I'm teaching like my kids or teaching you, I'm still doing the same thing of trying to get you certain in the language. And I talk in the book, The Strangest Fluency Secret, specifically how you can learn a language within the language itself. So that way you're not using English or whatever your native language is to try to learn a new language. Let's see. But it would be exactly the same thing. What's the difference? How long have you been in Japan, and how long have you been living in Japan? In that case, like there's no difference here. It's just different ways of saying the same thing. Neil Armstrong, an American astronaut, was the first person to walk on the moon. The question is why the first person to walk? Well, he was just the first person to do something. That's the idea. What's the question is why the first person to do? Well, it's like, and whenever you have a question like this about some language, I talk about this in the book also, we want to take a sentence and simplify it where we're looking at something that maybe you don't understand like the whole sentence, but you could understand some pieces of it. So if we have a line of people, you can imagine some people lined up like this one. So this would be the first person. First person, second person, third, fourth. So if we got 1, 2, 3, 4, like that, if there are numbers of them. So this is the first person. So if you understand that grammar, you can expand that like the first person to do something. So he's the first person to eat. Like I'm the first person to talk about this idea. I'm the first person to do this. I'm the first person to to get to the restaurant. So he's the first person to do this particular thing. So I am the first person to, to eat a marker. Like I just, I eat this marker over here. I am the first person to do that. All right. So it's just like the first person to do a particular thing. So it's a slightly different use of to in this sense, but it seems a little bit confusing. But you're just like the first person and then to walk. But it's like the first person to do the activity of whatever that thing is. So it's like you are the first person who walked on the moon, and you could describe it that way as well. But yeah, I think it's probably like that grammar point is confusing to you because it's taking a basic dictionary form of to walk or to run or whatever, but it's not using the grammar in that same way. So it's a person doing a particular activity. That's what that means. Like I might say like I'm going to run, like in a similar kind of way, going to eat, but I'm the first person to do a particular thing. Let me know if that makes sense. And Mahan says, hello, sir. Which regional accent in the United States is considered the most common or standard? I don't know. If you're looking at the news, like that kind of stuff, like Midwestern kind of accent is good, but it also depends on where you're living, you know. And another thing is, even native speakers will hear lots of variety in their English, whatever that situation is. You know, maybe they live in New York, but they will still hear people from California or Chicago or whatever, or even different dialects in New York as well. No, I said Tom because a man named Tom gave me an advance that you could ask again. That Tom, okay. Yeah, I don't know if he looks like Tom Hanks or not, but yeah. But Tom is a good man. Anyway, look at that. We got to the end right here. 94 minutes. How did I do that? I don't know how I get on these videos and keep talking for an hour and a half. This is crazy. Anyway, we will wind this down here, but CNC has another question here. For those who are living abroad and have to speak at least a little bit the language that is spoke because they need to get by no matter what. They need to get by no matter what. Yeah, I mean, some people can. I mean, you actually can survive some places. Japan is actually surprisingly good for people who don't speak the language, because a lot of Japanese people will be able to speak a little bit of English, especially if they think you don't speak Japanese. So, like, sometimes I will have some fun and just not speak Japanese, you know, just to see how people can speak. But actually, there are some pretty good speakers out here, and Japan is an easier place to get around, like for tourists or whatever. People are surprisingly helpful. All right, Gajraba, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, you are great. Thanks for forever. Blessed day. Well, thanks to everyone out there. If you have enjoyed this, do click the like button and share the video with anyone else who struggles to speak and would like to know why. Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick video because I'm especially before finishing the book, this is the main explanation that people understand by the end of the book, where really the point is, especially because most of what people think about practicing a language actually can come from yourself by getting these examples that build your understanding and make you feel more confident about using the language. So it's really about certainty, and if you feel sure about using your words, you will speak more confidently, even if you don't have someone yet to practice speaking with. But if you would like to learn more about that, that's what I talk about in my book, The Strangest Fluency Secret. Also, if you want me to just get you fluent and answer all these questions and do all the magical stuff that I do without you having to do anything, that's what I do in Fluent for Life. But you can learn more about both of those things and Frederick by clicking on the link in the description below this video. Have a fantastic day. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.